Under pressure, she delivers clutch serves, strong, precise, and far more effective than we've seen from her in previous matches. Alex keeps sending the ball back with depth and precision, forcing Noskova to hit one extra shot every time, and that's where the difference starts to show. Noskova's aggression begins to break down under pressure, while Eala's consistency remains rock solid.
Leylah Fernandez has every reason to be worried because just days before the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart, Germany was set to begin, Eala stepped onto a practice court and faced Linda Noskova, the same player who had beaten her convincingly at Indian Wells. But this time, Eala completely flipped the script with a dominant, controlled performance on clay that left no doubt about her level, with no nerves, no hesitation, just clean, aggressive tennis that echoed through the Stuttgart facility like a statement. And that message was impossible to ignore for Fernandez, who is set to meet her in the opening round of a WTA 500 event already packed with pressure, expectations, and elite competition. The context makes it even more serious because Stuttgart is one of the most stacked tournaments on the WTA calendar, featuring top names like Iga Swiatek, Coco Gauff, Elena Rybakina, and Jasmine Paolini, turning it into a true high-intensity battleground on indoor clay where every early round match carries real weight. Yet Fernandez has been drawn into what initially looks like a manageable opener against Eala, a younger player ranked lower and still building her presence at this level, which, on paper, would normally make Fernandez the clear favorite based on experience, ranking, and proven results on big stages. But that is exactly where the danger starts, because the version of Eala arriving in Stuttgart is not the same player from earlier in the season or the one still adjusting to elite competition, as she now comes in with confidence, rhythm, and a growing sense of belief. And that practice court win over Noskova only amplified the feeling that she is peaking at the right time and walking into this tournament with the kind of form that can instantly change how any matchup is viewed.
Marking their first ever meeting in singles competition. This matchup carries added intrigue as Fernandez, who has Filipino roots, has established herself on the global stage, highlighted by a runner-up finish at the US Open.
Now, let's talk about that training match itself and why it matters far beyond just being a practice hit. At Indian Wells 2026, Linda Noskova faced Eala in the fourth round, and it was one-way traffic from start to finish as Noskova delivered a ruthless 6-2, 6-0 victory. A scoreline that tells the full story on its own because it wasn't a tight contest or a match of fine margins. It was a complete shutdown where Eala was stripped of rhythm, overpowered by pace, and left with very few answers on the hard court. The kind of defeat that stays in your mind long after it's over and often pushes a player back to the practice court looking for revenge and adjustment. Fast forward to Stuttgart, and the setting changes completely. Same matchup, different surface, indoor clay, and this time Eala flipped the entire dynamic by producing a dominant response that erased the memory of that Indian Wells result in the most emphatic way. Because instead of being on the back foot, she was the one controlling everything, dictating rallies, setting the tempo, and refusing to let Noskova establish any kind of rhythm, with her movement looking sharper, her shot selection cleaner, and her overall confidence clearly elevated from where it was just weeks earlier. And even though this was only a practice match with no ranking points or official record attached, in professional tennis these sessions right before a tournament often reveal everything about a player's current form. And right now Eala's level looks extremely dangerous, not just because she got revenge on Noskova, but because of how completely she did it. That psychological win right before a tournament like this is worth its weight in gold. But the Noskova practice victory didn't happen randomly. It came from a preparation week that looked more like elite-level battle training than a normal practice schedule. In the days leading into Stuttgart, Eala wasn't just hitting balls. She was raising her level in sessions that felt intense, structured, and purpose-driven, and most importantly, she was doing it against some of the biggest names in tennis while holding her own. One day she was on court with Coco Gauff, the world number 3 and reigning US Open champion. And what stood out wasn't just the quality of the hitting, but the way Eala handled herself in that environment, calm, confident, and fully engaged without any sense of intimidation. Gauff even shared small tactical pointers during the session, talking through positioning and decision-making in those natural practice moments between elite players, and Eala didn't look like someone simply receiving guidance. She looked like someone processing it quickly and applying it immediately, matching the level rather than just observing it. Then the very next day, she was back on court with Iga Swiatek, the four-time French Open champion and widely regarded queen of clay. And that kind of session is as close as it gets to a real test on the surface, because Swiatek stretches your movement, exposes your timing, and forces you into constant problem-solving under pressure until there is no hiding place on court. Your ability to construct points, your defensive resilience, and your capacity to handle heavy topspin on a surface that punishes even the smallest weakness in footwork. Eala, following those high-level practice sessions with an immediate dominant win over Noskova, is the clearest indication that her preparation has not just been solid, but perfectly timed and fully effective, because it shows she is translating practice intensity directly into match-level execution without any drop-off. Gauff one day, Swiatek the next. Noskova completely dismantled after that. This is not random form or isolated bursts of quality. It is a clear upward curve of a player steadily building rhythm, confidence, and competitive sharpness with every single hit on court. And the context becomes even more important when you bring Coco Gauff into the picture, because there is already real competitive history between them this season that cannot be ignored. At Indian Wells 2026, Eala and Gauff met in the round of 32, and Eala took full control of the match early, winning the first set 6-2 and continuing to dictate play before Gauff was forced to retire while trailing, meaning Eala was firmly in command of the encounter up to that point and had already established superiority in how the match was being played. That result carries weight because it confirms she is not just competing with top-tier players in practice, but actually challenging and beating them in official competition when it matters. So when Gauff is now on the practice court in Stuttgart offering tactical advice and Eala responds with calm focus and confidence, it is not a simple hierarchy of veteran and youngster. It is a much more balanced reality where both players already know each other competitively, and Eala's previous win only adds another layer of belief, momentum, and danger heading into this tournament. This is no longer a one-sided dynamic of admiration. It has turned into a genuine rivalry between two elite competitors who respect each other, understand each other's games, and know exactly what the other is capable of producing on court. And that kind of belief, especially the confidence that comes from having already beaten a top-3 player, is what changes everything in tight tournament moments, because it builds the mental edge that separates good runs from dangerous ones. Which brings us back to Leylah Fernandez standing across the net from this version of Eala in the first round of the Stuttgart Open. Fernandez is a strong competitor in her own right, with proven fight, experience on big stages, and the kind of clay court resilience that can make any match uncomfortable. So she is absolutely not someone to overlook or dismiss. But the challenge in front of her is significant, because she is about to face a player who just dominated Linda Noskova in practice, spent the week training alongside Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff, and already owns a win over Gauff earlier this season in straight set control during their Indian Wells meeting. All of that momentum matters because Eala is not walking into Stuttgart as an unpredictable wildcard. She is arriving as a player in form, full of belief, and clearly building towards something bigger with every session she plays. Fernandez has the skills to compete, but she is also stepping into a situation where her opponent looks sharp, confident, and increasingly comfortable against top-level opposition, which raises the difficulty of the matchup significantly. The question now is whether Fernandez can absorb that pressure early and disrupt the rhythm, or whether Eala continues her current run of confidence deep into the tournament.